शर्म से शाम के सूरज ने झुका ली आंखें शर्म से शाम के सूरज ने झुका ली आंखें बिन्ते ज़हरा सर दरबार खड़ी है लोगों गम शबीर की दौलत ये बड़ी है लोगों मेरी आँखों में जो अश्कों की जड़ी है लोगों सीना अकबर का जो बर्ची से हुआ है ज़ख्मी सीना अकबर का जो बर्ची से हुआ है ज़ख्मी चोट लैला के कलेजे पे
I think there are times when the general public do think of Muslims as terrorists. Obviously not all people, but yeah, I think there are times when I've spoken to some Muslim students and some of the Muslim women's groups that meet at the little chaplaincy house. They would say after September the 11th, for example, that they were being spat at in the street.
The Muslims have been targeted who like to make a career for themselves are being brought down simply because what has happened on the 11th of September, they have been looked down onto this that all the Muslims are same.
Islam is being victimized. Islam is a religion that everybody hates at the moment.
The number of Muslims in Britain is generally put at around 1.5 million, though some community groups suggest it could be nearer 2 million. Perhaps half came originally from Pakistan, with the Middle East and North Africa accounting for around a quarter. The largest Muslim communities are in Greater London, the West Midlands, West Yorkshire, Lancashire and Central Scotland. One of the areas where there is a big population of Muslims is in the city of Bradford, where I met George Majid, a British Muslim who gives me his views on Islam.
Today's society is looking upon the Muslims as the number one target, as terrorists in the world, especially the West. And if we look into the history of being a Muslim and born as a Muslim, Islam is one of the greatest religions which does not believe in terrorist acts, which is happening today in all over the American subcontinent, in Africa, due to the people who are oppressing upon the Muslims and looking down upon them. And these small groups are only trying to protect their integrity from the world, that we are good people and we are people who believe in Islam, and Islam does not give anybody the right to violate anybody's homeland, place of worship. Islam is a religion, peace and harmony, and Islam teaches people the world, humanity.
The terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon on September 11th has raised many questions about Islam. Perhaps the chief question is whether Islam is a terrorist religion or not. Many British Islamic leaders have answered that genuine Islamic teachings absolutely forbid the kind of terrorist act perpetrated in New York and Washington. Gulistan Khan, a spiritual Muslim, condemns any terrorist attacks on civilians and hates the way the media has portrayed the religion he believes in.
Do you think the public think Muslims are all terrorists?
Yes, I definitely think so. What's happened on September 11th, the public, the Western eye looks upon as all Muslims as terrorists. It is having an effect on all of us, and especially the young generation. What is Islam? Islam is love and peace. We have culture, we have different ways of practicing Islam. And because we have culture and different ways of practicing, there are certain things that we cannot do with the Western people. We cannot mix in. Islam is not what the Taliban have showed the example in Afghanistan. That is not Islam at all. Islam is totally the opposite. If they look upon the white race, the Western world as peaceful, Islam is even more peaceful. What the Western world think Islam is not that at all. We love each other. We don't believe in killing. We don't believe in terrorism. Islam does not allow terrorism. Islam practices peace, and the alternative name for Islam is peace itself.
British understandings of Islam are greatly affected by the media. Interest in Islam was non-existent in the media and most Americans until the rise of Islamic fundamentalism in the Middle East, which has been unsympathetic to American policy goals in the region. The fall of the Shah in Iran and the rise of Islamic fundamentalist regime there, and the attacks that Westerners are faced by Islamic terrorists, have shaped the misunderstanding of Islam.
I think since September the 11th, the idea that the West was actually going to have a war against sort of terrorism has kind of dominated, and that seems to have been caught up in an agenda of being anti-Muslim. I'm not sure that that's the actual intention, but again I think we just have to go on, people of goodwill, people of faith, that all different faiths really have to kind of promote faith communities that are actually trying to work together for justice and for peace in the world. We can't just allow the media to run with its sometimes its negative angle on one particular community. It's a form of scapegoating. Yeah, the media can scapegoat particular groups, either of an individual or a particular community, and sometimes that happens towards Muslims, I think.
What you see on the Western media is not the true story of Islam at all. The reality is never shown in papers, never shown on television. The West will only show that will bring hatred into the Western world's people. The reality is we are a very loving nation, very loving religion. I do not condemn any religion. We're all same. We're all same God's people. It's definitely having an effect on the children, on their education, on their future prospects, jobs, careers. They're being let down everywhere they go. They're being victimized. They're being closed doors upon. It's a shame. It's a shame. I think we have just as much right as our white brothers on this earth. There's no race that's superior than any other. We all have the same rights. We all belong to the same God. We belong to the same religion. And we should be living in harmony, love each other.
All buildings tell you that daily people after working or doing dirty looks at you getting lost or something, you know, because directions from them, and then this guy or the woman, they tend to just ignore you and just carry on walking, and you just come over next to them and just say, excuse me, and just tend to walk and ignore you. You just think that, you and you would have done, I don't care.
Has the atrocities of September 11th affected any of your personal relationships with non-Muslim friends?
Yeah, it has. By making some of my friends, I had one friend, her name was Naomi, and before the 11th of September attack, she was very friendly to me. And after the attack, after those incidents, she's been very racism to me, so she didn't talk to me anymore as much as she used to do. So she ignores me when I'm talking to her. And the same with my other friend, Fiona. Now she's left, but she ignored me like as if I wasn't even there. So when I talk to her, anything about religion, or after I come after faith assembly, she just go, no, let's just do this, and she just ignore what I'm talking about. If I talk about religion, she say no, or Christianity, and she won't talk about Islam at all. What's changed my friends, I think, is the parents, because mostly it's parents who explain it to them. Like if something's happening, my dad explains to me what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So I think it's their parents who've told them what they should do and what they shouldn't do.
I'm someone who has kind of very mixed feelings about extending kind of religious education within schools. I think factually there is the number of students taking GCSEs in religious studies has quadrupled in the last couple of years. So there obviously is an interest in people actually understanding some of the major world faiths. I suppose I kind of feel a bit reticent about individual church schools or individual faith schools. I wouldn't have liked to have gone to a particularly purely Christian school. I actually like to be in a multicultural environment, and I actually think that does enable tolerance and understanding and acceptance of people as human beings first, really, before their sort of cultural identity or religious belief. And I also think it depends how it's taught. I think the more understanding there is faith traditions, like any subject, the better we are, the better informed we are. But it has to be sort of good education.
Like all other religions of God, Islam promotes peace, love and harmony among the people. Actually, the word Islam, in addition to meaning submission to God, is also derived from the Arabic word salam, meaning peace. The Muslims greet each other by saying salam, peace be upon you. The religion of Islam condemns the killing or even the persecution of people merely because they embrace a different religion. Attacks on the civilians and the least expected people around the world by these groups is a kind of strife that cannot be justified by any religion or under any cause, and is strongly condemned in all religions including Islam, as clarified by the words of God in the Quran, the Final Testament.
We're not terrorists. We don't believe in terrorism. Islam is love thy neighbour, love each other, helping each other.